All right, so let's look at some other utility functions that have already been written for us and that we can use to help spice up our little campaign mission that we have going right here. And primarily when we look at our map, last time we made these unit groups here that already start with the base that we wanted to patrol the base in some sense. But by all means, when we start the map right now, we start with nothing. And we can spawn in these units manually and patrol them manually to make sure that the base starts with something. So we're going to start off doing that just by looking at what we have in the code. So we have these two files here, scenario utils and scenario framework, and for this sake we're going to start with scenario utils. Again, you can just hold left control, click on the import, and then you end up in scenario utilities. Now, scenario utilities is, as the summary describes, are one file that handles all sorts of interactions with the save file. And the save file is the save file here that is shipped with our map. Right, so this contains all the units in the platoons and the not the props, my apologies, all the areas, the markers, and the units of the map that we define in the map editor. So in this case, if we look at scenario utilities, there's a function called create or spawn army group, assemble, create initial army group, no, create army group, there we go. That given the specified group, right, all of these are in groups of units. So we have land platoon B and land platoon A. It will try and spawn that entire group and then return the group for us. So let's start with something simple. We noticed that we had this little issue at the start of the game that these frigates are actually being spawned as part of a unit group instead of a wreckage. So let's fix that before we do anything else. We can just select all our frigates that are supposed to be wreckage, and then in here we create a new group which we call M1 East Base Wreckage. There we go. And we're going to copy, delete them, and paste them into this new group. There we go. And you can see that the editor already picks them up as wreckage because we added wreckage to the unit group name. Now we just need to spawn that in as wreckage. So we've got this create army group with this wreckage parameter, and what that does is for every unit in the group we create the wreckage unit. Fair enough. So let's use this. When we start the mission, this is specific to the Cybern base, so let's just add it in here. We can go to scenario utils .create army group. Now this doesn't have all the fancy annotation that all the other functions have, because we didn't really get to doing that yet. But that doesn't mean we can't get it done. So this says the string army, which is, if I'm not mistaken, it gets the army brain. I think this can be an index, but I'm not entirely sure. No, needs the brain name, so that would be Cybern.
It needs to be a string, yeah.
And then the name of the group. So we just named that, so that's this group right here. And then if we want it to be wreckage, which is true, and then the balance.
Can ignore balance.
I think we can ignore that. So let's just set it to false.
Oh, just nil or nothing is fine.
Let's just completely ignore it then.
Yeah, I think the balance is used just internally when it's spawning some platoons for some old shenanigans. But you don't need to worry about it when spawning.
Let's not then. And now we can see that the wreckage spawned in. Right, we got these little boats, these little ships on the water or on the shore. That is going to be a bit of our reclaim, and we can do more than that. So let's go back to our start mission 1, which we're going to refactor real quick because here we have start M1 Cybern. So let's do a start M1 UEF and then copy all of the UEF related logic into there. There we go. And here we have one time setup logic, which is the logic that we are just gonna spawn this unit group here one time and make it patrol. Now we already set up these patrol routes. We have land patrol A, and I think we have a land patrol B, but no, we don't have a land patrol B, so let's make that land patrol B. Don't add a space in that. And land patrol B is just gonna patrol slightly more inland. Land patrol B is B01. Land patrol B02. Land patrol B03. And there we have it. So we're just gonna spawn in the units first. Land platoon A is scenario utils dot create army group, and then here again we've got the army, which is called UEF.
We have a little recommendation.
Yes.
So when you're spawning units for the AI, you should be spawning them as a platoon and not as a group. And that is for the reason that if the units are not in a platoon and they happen to be wandering around the base that is trying to form some attack platoon that might have those units, it's just gonna steal them. It's not gonna take the units that are at the rally point, but just basically any unit.
Aha. So let's make sure that, and because they're part of a platoon, then the code says, no, these units are preoccupied.
Yeah. By default, like all units are in a platoon called army pool, and from that the AI is taking units. Yeah, so, and when your base is trying to form a platoon, it's gonna take from all those units and check the units that are around the base. And if it happens to be just a spawned group that is not in a platoon, it might steal them.
Okay, that's good to know. So we don't need any more than these 3 arguments. Do you know what the other arguments are? Like, what's this table node?
That is for the recursive spawning, since your platoon here in the editor has subgroups, right? Since it's the difficulty.
This one doesn't.
Yeah. Oh, right. It doesn't. Yeah, but if it had, like, if it was made for the difficulties and it had some subgroups, so it is just for the so it can spawn it recursively.
Okay. All right. And then we have.
Yeah, so you don't need to care about it when spawning them. Yeah, just only these 3 arguments when doing from the script. The rest is for the automatic magic behind.
All right, let's not do automatic magic. So now if we go back and start our game, our bomber is already taking care of that base. Then we should see these platoons, but they won't be doing anything yet. Or we broke it. Oh, right, we're not calling this function. So let's do that. Start 1, and then we should definitely do this here. There we go. Let's restart. There we go. So now we can see that the unit groups are spawning, but they're not giving any orders. So let's do that right now. And where the scenario utils is all about the save file interactions, the scenario framework is all about doing things with units and etc. And in this case, we have a patrol function called platoon patrol route, which is what we're going to be using. So
You want the patrol chain?
yes, I think so. Yes, this one right here. Platoon patrol chain. So let's do that. We go back to our land platoons here, and then we can say scenario framework dot patrol chain, and here we have a platoon. Well, that's the platoon we just made. And then we have a chain, which we have right here. So we go to markers, chains, and we have chain A and chain B. So let's start with A. And then we have a squad, which is specific to the platoon, but I don't think we need that argument right now.
Yeah, that's optional.
And then we have B and B. My computer is enjoying the stream, recording, and the editor open all at once with the 2 FPS. And there we have it. Now we can do the same thing for the other platoons. So we had a bunch of interceptors right here. Let's see what they were. Bomber platoon, which is these 4 units. Interceptor platoon. Let's spawn in the interceptor platoon. Same army, but now a different name. There we go. And yep, that's fine. But in this case, we're going to do something different. We're just going to get platoon units. So now we have the units themselves. So this here is a add type of unit. And what we want to do with these interceptors is for every interceptor, we kind of just want them to get 2 random points in their area, in their surroundings, and then patrol those 2 points. So that all of these interceptors kind of stay where they are and patrol that little area. So for every interceptor, we're going to get the position. And then we're going to compute 2 different points. So we have position A is position 1, position 2, and position 3, where we want to add some randomness to. So let's say random 40. I think that's really far, but we'll see what happens. And then we do another position B, where we do the same thing. And now we can issue the individual commands that a player does to its own units. So in this case, we want to do the issue patrol, which is right there. And these are annotated already. So we know what to expect. It expects a table of units. Now we're doing this on an individual interceptor basis. So that is our table of units, and it requires a position, which is this position. And then we do another issue patrol for the other position right there. So let's see what this looks like. Again, I think 40 is really, really far.
I don't think so.
It's about the range of an ASAF, I think. A bit more.
It's not gonna be that far.
No, fair enough. I like how they all go downwards.
I think you want to do like a plus minus on it, right?
Right. That kind of makes sense. I agree.
Well, I mean the random from, let's say, minus 40 to plus 40 or something like that. Since, you know, you're always moving only one direction on the coordinate.
Yeah, you could do something like this. Like that. But then this is going to be not that far away. So let's do a distance. And then here do 0.5 times distance. So this is a range. Random returns a number between 0 and 1. So we multiply that number by our total distance, and which is going to be 100. And then we remove half the distance so that we have minus 50 to plus 50 offset from our position right here. So let's look at what that looks like. What's our timing? 16 minutes. That's pretty good. Alright, that looks a lot more sane. So now they're actually patrolling my spawn location instead of somewhere down there. So that's looking good. That's looking pretty good. Considering that the AI is going to be building his own scouts, engineers, and platoons too, we are slowly but surely starting to get a base that feels more alive. Now, one unit that I would really like to add for the sake of completeness is an air staging facility. Otherwise, all of our jets are going to be out of fuel in about 5 minutes, and that looks bad. So let's see what we have. Air staging facility. There you are. Is this in the correct group? No. Base D1, D2, D3. It should always have this air staging facility. Which
So it should be in D1.
Yes, exactly. So let's, there we go. At some point I'll make this base look more like UEF, but for now that's quite a time sink. I did do that for the Cyber base, which is kind of like how the average Cyber base looks like. I tried. That's the...
Yeah, that definitely some nice wall art.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's... When looking at the old campaign missions of the base game, so the non-Forged Alliance, they all have pretty wall art. All of those Cyber bases do.
Already back then, they knew that each wall adjacency adds +1 prettiness to the base.
Yeah, exactly. That's how the statistics work. So do we have the... It didn't spawn in, of course. Because I didn't save. I do have the correct group. Yeah. Alright. But with that said, we've got our interceptors set up, and you can, if you look at, for example, the scenario framework, what they're doing in here is not very different from what we are doing manually right here. So by all means, I highly recommend you to just look through these functions and take some inspiration from what they're doing. Because give or take, they use issue form patrol here, issue patrol. I'd say it's not very much different from this group patrol route, except for the fact that we don't have 2 points set in stone. We just compute them on the spot here. So take your inspiration from this file. And while we're at it, I noticed that the colors of our factions are completely off, and there are coloring functions here to help us with that. So we have a ally UEF. Let's add that in here. Scenario framework.ally UEF color, which is UEF ally. And we have a hostile siren. Oh, where am I going? There it is. Set siren player color, evil color. That's our siren right there. Let's set siren, even color, siren. So that should help with our colors.
And don't forget to set your color as a UEF player.
Yes, by all means. Set UEF player. There we go. That looks 100 times better already. And we haven't even scouted the siren base yet. Let's see what else we have in here.
So those are some predefined colors that are just used in most of the campaigns, but you can set the color to whatever you want, as you see, like set army color, and it just takes RGB value. So just look for any website with RGB colors, find your favorite colors, and copy your 3 numbers, and you can have that.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. There's a few more functions that I'd like to show you. One of them being create visible area, which is quite useful if you want to highlight the player something. Another one is intel, where are you? Clear intel. This is useful if you want to do the reverse. So say for example that you did some cinematic over the base here, but then afterwards you don't want the player to know the location of every single structure, then you can do this clear intel function that flushes the intel in a rectangle to clear out the base intel again. Now I'm waiting for one of these scouts to fly over, but let's just quickly teleport our ass in, and there you can see that we have this more typical Cybran color where they're a bit more evil. But that's pretty much about the scenario framework and the scenario utilities. There's a lot more in those files, and by all means you should look at them, discover what they mean, and see what functions are used in these default campaign files. But you'll notice quite quickly that they all sort of do the same thing, right? They create these platoon groups and then they make them chain, or they create the units and then they set some attack move, etc, etc. And then everything else with the mechanics of the base manager is done by those operation AIs that we saw at the start. So this is going to be a bit of a shorter video. We'll come back to this in the future when we make our mission slightly more dynamic.